Isekai, the genre that for the past few years seems to produce little else than absolute garbage. But it wasn't always like that. Okay, maybe it was, but that's not the point. Hello and welcome, you beautiful people. Before I get started, please do consider subscribing to the channel as I'm trying to reach that magical 1000 this year. It's no big secret that I don't really like Isekai as a genre, but from time to time a diamond emerges from the rough, and that is exactly what Saga of Tanya the Evil is. But why is that? What makes it so special, and what makes a non-Isekai fan enjoy it? And I am going to answer that question. Sort of the point of the video, isn't it? But first I feel it prudent to quickly mention why is it that I don't like most Isekai, and that is actually fairly simple. 99% of modern Isekai is the same mediocre crap, a generic societal outcast who looks like every other Isekai protagonist, dies a generic death and ends up in a most generic fantasy world ever, and would you guess it, they are now overpowered as all hell, and bam, they have a harem. Sometimes there's even a twist. This guy has a smartphone, this guy has his mum, and this guy steals panties. Okay, I admit, Konosuba is a great show, but you get the idea. But then what sets Saga of Tanya the Evil apart from the chaff? Well, first of all, screw that fantasy setting and good old Truckun as much as we may love him. How about you are about to die, decide to blame God, since, might as well, and all of a sudden time stops and would you look at that? A self-proclaimed god whose divinity you challenged, partly out of spite and logic, and partly cause
any man who must say, "I am the king," is no true king.
Decides that it would make you a believer as punishment for your insolence, and poof, you end up being reborn smack bang into a suspiciously German-looking nation, declaring world war on everyone else and being declared war on in equal measure. Oh, and you're now an orphan child who soon rises as a cynical as hell lolly witch, committing magical war crimes left, right and center as a ranking officer of a totally not Third Reich army. Tanya von...
Tanya von Degurecghaff
would honestly not be out of place if she stood with Himmler, Göring and the rest. Even if anime, not Germany, is ideologically closer to the Kaiserreich than the third one, since, that might have been a tad too far on the side of evil. Still, it's pretty obvious that in Saga of Tanya the Evil you are rooting for the bad guy, which presents interesting possibilities. From time to time, Tanya is exactly what you might expect from, say, an overzealous SS officer who cares not for anyone's life and has to be reined in by their comrades to not get everyone but herself killed, but that isn't everything she is. At her core, Tanya is still human, and her goal is to land a safe rear echelon job somewhere nice behind a desk shuffling papers back and forth. Too bad she just happens to be really good at killing, and as such she gets sent to the front lines time and time again, and eventually that gets to her and she becomes the terrifying and somewhat unhinged officer we all know and love. Not that she was a nice person before the war, but still. And that is kind of a prevailing theme of the anime. Not being evil, but war and how it gets to people and changes them as they witness and sometimes commit its horrors. Now, Tanya the Evil is not a unique isekai in having a war in it, but here it's a prevailing theme, and this isn't a nice dandy fantasy war. No, this is mechanized 21st century war on an industrial scale, spiced up with the destructive abilities of mages flying over the battlefield raining down death. And above them all stands Tanya, forced to pray for a god she despises in exchange for power, and what power that is. The magical might exchange for prayer turns Tanya from your average high-capacity mage into a living form of divine punishment, a power she uses to its full extent against all who stand in her way, be they friend or foe. It's no big secret that Tanya is very much the bad guy here, and while there may be some issues with her character, she is by no means the only one committing atrocities. But most of the characters partaking in the slaughter are shown to be good people, which really emphasizes the narrative of war makes monsters of us all. Take for example one of Tanya's closest subordinates, Victoria Ivanovna Serebryakov. As she's introduced, she's a friendly and hopeful, even naive girl with starry eyes, wishing to be a battle mage for the glory that all the stories promised, and then she gets hit with the cold fact that there is no glory in war, just mindless, pointless slaughter, and she too slowly gets pretty damn good at it, never enjoying what she does but not questioning her orders either. Or Anson Sukes, or Sue, whichever you prefer, the dutiful leader of a mage corps serving under the Northern Allied Forces of anime, not Norway and Sweden. He is shown as both a capable soldier fighting to protect his people as well as a loving father to his daughter Marisu. And yes, the irony of that name in an isekai is not lost on me. And yet, at the end of his line, he is looking pretty much as crazy as Tanya in her worst fits of cruelty. Monsters, each and every single one. But also so much more. They are soldiers in every meaning of the word. They joke, they mourn, they make friends and build bonds. They are comrades in arms and warriors to the last man and woman, trained to do awful things either out of necessity or for the sake of someone else's dreams of world dominion. They kill and they die. But war and soldiers isn't all there is to the Saga of Tanya the Evil. Religion and questions of divinity and faith play an important part in the story. After all, it was being X, the self-proclaimed god, who brought Tanya here, and it's also him who provides the most devastating of mages with the boost of power necessary for them to do what they do. All for the sake of his own vanity and ego. After all, what is a god to a non-believer? And it is this reality that this particular god is so afraid of. What is he and all his power if there is nobody to praise him? And so he pushes humanity into confrontation either with manipulation or direct action, and as we see, sometimes goes so far as to provide them with the means to make war all the more brutal, since suffering breeds faith. Admittedly, if I had to deal with humanity's bullshit for millennia in countless parallel worlds, I'd be pretty jaded too, and possibly looking for entertainment of a more terrible sort. And since blood sports have been very popular in our history, why would our creator be any different? Then again, arguing with a mortal over belief does also come across a little childish. But I've talked about what is in Tanya the Evil and not if it's actually any good. Does it look good? Does it sound good? How is the story? Well, yes, it is a really good show. The story is an amalgamation of the aforementioned themes, pulling elements, weapons and events from World War I with some spice thrown in from World War II, and animifying them into a generally enjoyable if sometimes grim package. The story doesn't really hold that many big surprises, but at the same time, it somehow manages to capture the feeling of life isn't a movie. Bad things happen regardless of how hard you try, and I at least found myself enjoying the brutal reality of the story. The anime also looks good. It isn't an oh my god this is gorgeous effect you might get from, say, certain episodes of Demon Slayer, but there is nothing to really complain about either. Quick editorial note, there is some CGI in the show that doesn't look amazing, but at the same time I have seen far worse in more recent anime. And sometimes, like in the facial expression, Studio Nut really hits it out the park. Also, not gonna lie, I enjoyed the glowing eyes of the mages immensely. And same goes for the sound design. It's a bit hit and miss, but mainly on the hit side of things. The music is good, but not really stand out, while the sound effects are an interesting mixture of the bassy and almost mechanical sounds of magic, combined with all the destructive orchestra of war. Now, it's not like the show contains real sounds of battle, since giving shell shock to your audience would generally be a bad call, but it is more than believable enough. In conclusion, Youjo Senki, Saga of Tanya the Evil is the perfect isekai for someone who generally dislikes the genre. It throws out the vast majority of the usual isekai tropes, and instead of fantastical adventures, focuses more on social commentary, mainly focused on war and religion. Two things that, let's face it, will always be relevant in our society. It's by no means light viewing, but it is damn good, and amidst all the seriousness and big topics, it's a show about simple things like soldiers, duty, and one prick of a god, and the human who to the very end has chosen to spite the divine. Overall, I'd I'd give Saga of Tanya the Evil a solid 9 out of 10, but that is partially because it's an anime after my own heart, since I do generally enjoy Militaria, but even if you don't, I'd recommend giving the show a chance. It is generally really good, if different from what you might expect from an isekai. And lastly, before I go, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Did you agree or disagree with my verdict? Have you already seen Saga of Tanya the Evil? And if not, have I maybe convinced you to give it a go? If you like this, like it, dislike if you didn't, subscribe for more anime goodness, and to help me reach that magical 1k, check the links in the description if you want to engage with me outside of YouTube, and remember, all of your interactions are a worthy sacrifice to the algorithm god. With this, I've been Cheese, and I hope to see you next time. Ta-ta for now.